Okay, so now that we have some base shape information, let's talk about how we can work with shapes further. In fact, we can combine shapes to make new ones. Let's say we hated this arrow, which I certainly do. Let's go ahead and actually create our own arrow. So first, what we want to do, let's get rid of this, and I'm going to take this rectangle, and I'm going to take this triangle, and I'm going to lay one on top of another, and let's adjust this a little bit. Now if you hold shift and select the side here, right, the side square, when you click and drag, you'll notice it keeps its shape. Well, that's not necessarily what we want. I'm going to hit Command Z, get this back to where we want. We just want to increase the width of this triangle overall, or at least the base of this triangle. So let's go ahead. We can select this. How can we make this shape just wider? Well, we can do so a couple of ways. If we were to hold the Alt key, you'll notice it has some red lines. These are often used for measuring, of which we'll get into when we get into more practical techniques. But if I hold the Alt key, or Option key, it should say Option Alt on your keyboard, you can go ahead and click this square here, and it's going to allow you to adjust the width while not changing any locations of anything like that, and it's adjusting both sides equally out from the center. So you can see here we can get this just about right to where we want it to look. Now let's go ahead and click and drag, select both of these, and I'm going to remove any sort of border. Now I'm also going to change the color. We're just going to make this, let's make this default blue color because it's a nice color. We can select this blue right here. Okay, so we have a nice looking blue arrow, much nicer looking than the arrow that we would have gotten doing this through Sketch's own arrows tool. But the problem is we click this, whatever, it moves. Now we could always do something like this where we select both of them, and we could come in and do Command G to group them, which puts them into a folder together. So now anytime we select this, it moves as an arrow. But that's not good enough, because really what's happening here is it's essentially just two shapes inside of a folder, right? It combines two shapes here, and if we were to want to do, let's say, a border around the entire shape, we could add this border. We get this funky border that's actually the bottom border of the triangle here. It's ugly. Let's uncheck this checkbox right here. Let's select both of these again. I'm actually going to remove these from a group. You can do that by selecting the group, holding Command Shift G. Okay, so Command G to group, Command Shift G to ungroup. Now we have our triangle. Both items are selected here. Now let's come up top here to our toolbar where we have some tools. Now up top we have these 4 different merging layer tools. We have Union, we have Subtract, we have Intersect, and we have Difference. If you were to guess which one we would like to use, please do so now. What we're going to be using is the Union tool. Now the Union tool is going to take both of these shapes and combine their geometry. So you'll notice when I hit Union like that, instead of a folder, while we do still have an arrow where we can access both the triangle and the rectangle, we now have what's considered a combined shape. In fact, if we were to double click, in fact, the reason why that's different is instead of a folder where we just have everything grouped together, we now have some options over in our toolbar where we can modify the fill of the entire shape. We can make this teal color, this yellowish green, this purple, whatever. But as you can see, it's filling in the entire shape and not just what would be the 2 separate shapes individually. This is immediately apparent if we add, let's say, a black border to this thing. It's going to be ugly, but I can bump up the thickness. I'm going to hold Shift and hit up. Maybe bump this down to 10, and as you can see now, our border is now within the 2 shapes together and follows it around, and no more ugly border from the triangle and both the rectangle. And this is also going to apply to things like drop shadows or inner shadows or blurs, right? If we add a drop shadow on this and increase the blur here, you can see it is of the entire shape, no overlapping or anything. Now I just added a shadow really quickly, which is something that we're going to be doing a lot more of, and I didn't really cover it too extensively. And I might be doing that a lot through this series, right? We're going to do something maybe once and we're going to go back over it later. But all you need to know is that to add a shadow, where it says shadows on the right, you just simply click plus. Same thing for inner shadows, you just click plus. And then here you have options to a whole bunch of tools. Now, how do we get rid of shadows? Let's say we're checking these and adding a whole bunch more. Click the checkbox, then click the trash. Checkbox, trash. Checkbox, trash. That's how you get rid of a shadow. Let's go ahead and get rid of the shadow. Checkbox, trash. Okay, so now that that shadow is gone, we now have our combined shape. Now, if we want to make a shape that's essentially a donut, what we can do is let's create two regular ovals. I'm going to create one oval. I'm going to click off of it, hit O again, and create another oval. With both of these ovals selected, we're going to use our alignment tools, which we're going to be getting into more in depth in a minute, where we're going to hit this one with the align horizontally. When we hover over it, it looks like two bars with a straight line down the middle, and then we're going to do the exact same thing horizontally or vertically, where it's two vertical lines with a line down the middle. And you can see that these two shapes are perfectly aligned within one another, and we can hit subtract. Now let's head back up to our union tools or our combination for shapes, and let's go ahead and click subtract. You can see we now have the donut shape, and where this shape, again, if we were to change the border is going to be the border of the donut itself and not necessarily both shapes individually. You can see this is totally cut out. If we were to take the shape and lay it on top, the center here is completely hollow. So as you can see, we have a hollow center because it's physically cut out one shape from another. Now, in addition to union, we also have intersect and difference. We can quickly illustrate those by aligning two shapes, selecting them, click intersect. You can see that the only thing we have left is the points in which those two shapes intersect, and those are our new shapes. Now, difference is the exact opposite. It's just going to cut out the middle. So the parts where they line up, it's going to cut it out. However, you'll notice we have some interesting stuff with the borders going on. Let's actually go back and let's do the intersect. Now, what I want to do is, after the fact, this shape isn't exactly what I'm looking for. I'm going to come over here to my layers, open up this drop down, and you now have access to each of these shapes individually, and we can select this oval, and using the keyboard, I'm going to hit over to the right, and you can see I'm modifying what is the actual intersection of these two shapes. I can now click off, and just like that, we still have this shape. Now, you could do that with the borders and everything intact. In fact, we could adjust the base size of our triangle. Let's say this base is no longer, it's too skinny, right? It's not going to hold it up. That top is too tall. Let's go ahead and select the rectangle right here. I'm going to hold the Alt key. I'm going to grab the square here, and I'm going to increase the base size, and that looks a little bit more natural. So as you can see here, we've done quite a bit using union, subtract, intersect, and difference, and we've created a more complex shape that we can now use all over our project. We can style certain ways if we'd like, and we can use it all over our project. So you'll be doing a lot of shape combination when you're creating more complex shapes, and maybe you're creating, like, let's say SVG icons or something like that. This is going to be how you could do that, right? You're going to be creating a bunch of simple shapes and then combining them. Another way that you're going to want to create this stuff is through use of the vector tool. So in the next video, we're going to be covering the vector tool, which is a standard feature in so many other illustration applications, and something you're going to want to at least use to be able to use proficiently, let alone to master, if you want to become really great at creating illustrations within Sketch. So fire up the next video as we learn the vector tool. If you would like to purchase this series and see the rest of it, we're going to be doing 3 full chapters of sketch tutorials, basically taking you through everything you need to know, from basic examples and sort of foundational knowledge to actually building real-world application designs and using real-world techniques that you'll see in the office. So check it out. Head over to store.leveluptutorials.com or click the annotation in this video to head over to the store and purchase this series. Keep in mind that purchasing this series helps go a long ways towards creating free tutorials for this website, or you could become a Level Up Pro, subscribe, and get access to streaming this series. So head over to store.leveluptutorials.com to complete this Sketch series and learn everything there is to know about Sketch.